Garden sheds, we all have them, whether that's a purchased shed or a built one like this one behind me. They're fantastic for storing things or relaxing in at the garden. In this episode, I'm going to condense 5 previous episodes into one because a number of you have asked for one episode that's not so long. However, I will put links to all the other episodes in the description below. But this will give you an understanding of what it takes to build your own shed. I'm Tony O'Neill and this is UKUE Grow. On this channel we deal with all things gardening, poultry keeping and beekeeping. If you want to make your garden a perfect place to relax or want to know how to grow your own food, then click the subscribe button and bell icon to be notified each time we put out new content just like this. You are not allowed to use concrete on allotment sites, so here I decided to dig an 18-inch deep hole in the ground. This enabled me to bring in tons of hardcore in order to build our base. At home you would just use concrete. As you can see, for the first layer I used breeze blocks and bricks. I then moved on to larger stones, then finer stones, and eventually ended up with fine grit. I then laid 2 foot by 2 foot patio slabs on top. This will create the base that will drain and stop rats from living underneath it. We've got a good solid base now, so we can pretty much put anything down on this. We know it's not going to collapse, we know there's not going to be any issues with rats or anything like that. The next thing is to start creating the walls. Simply lay out your timbers on the floor. Create the external timbers for the wall and then lay in the internals. Most walls are simple to make, but like here I was adding a door and a window, so the layout is a little more complicated. But just take your time and screw these, don't nail. This is stronger and can be dismantled if it's not right. This shed will have a single sloping roof off to the back of the shed where I will collect the water to use on the garden. For this, the front wall is around 9 inches taller than the back wall. Once we have all 4 walls built, we simply need to bolt them together. If you have someone to help you, this is easy. If not, use a clamp, as this is a second pair of hands. Bolt them together or screw them, the choice is yours. Just move the walls to the marked locations and make your first corner. Ensure it is square and then place in the other walls to complete the structure's frame. There you have it guys, all 4 walls are up. As you can see here, the front is about 9 inches higher than the back, and that's to create the slope for the rain to run off. But all it needs now is for me to start putting the rafters in, and away we go. As you can see, I've now got the front door in and we've started playing the outside. Now this is a hardwood exterior play, so we can just paint it. This is the shed currently, and whoops, excuse me, fall over. I've changed to shuttering ply to here, still exterior grade for the last 3 because that's what I had here. There you are guys, there's all the back wall finished. The roof is all done as well with corrugated sheeting, so it keeps the shed really light. I painted this shed with a dedicated external wood paint in the colour I wanted. This was to help protect all those exposed timbers. There we go. So we sealed all the joints and then we've basically built a corner board on with that, and we've done one across the bottom, and we will seal the bottom with construction adhesive, which will help hold the slab, keep some of the water out, and then we'll go over that with a silicone just to help shed the water. Now where the 2 joins were, we've filled with construction adhesive, and that'll help keep out water. And we are now going to put in some 2x1 and screw that in its place, and then we will be done as far as that goes. So here it is, guys. I've got a little bit more paint work to do on the shed, just to touch up where I've dripped a bit of paint, or some of the framework, some of the trim needs a little bit more paint, a third coat. But I thought, well, this is going to give you an idea of what it looks like, how it's all set up. Excuse the mess all around here, we've got to finish the path in front of it, but the shed itself is now watertight and is now able to be used as a shed. When you design something, inevitably you find that there are issues with it. So what are the issues with this shed? Well, firstly, obviously we used reclaimed windows and doors in here, and we got a blown pane here. We knew that from the very first episode. But the biggest issue we have is the roof on the shed. Now, originally I designed this shed so that we could also grow in it as well, but now I've come to a point where I've decided against that, and there's two reasons for it. The first reason was last summer. As you can see, it's nice and bright today. In that shed, it gets absolutely boiling. It's 17 foot by 14 foot of clear roof, and the sun just comes through and that heat has nowhere to go. It gets so hot in there. Last summer I couldn't even use the shed, so that took out all of this space and I didn't get to use it. And reason number two is, during the winter, that corrugated plastic we used then has lots and lots of condensation, so the heat builds up in the daytime in the shed, and then through the night the cold hits that plastic, it all condenses and it's dripping everywhere in there. And also it was running down, that condensation was then running down the roof and running down the back wall, so that back wall was absolutely soaking all of last winter. So let my mistakes be a warning for you all. Corrugated sheeting is okay for cold frames, but don't use it if you want a watertight shed. I spent an entire day ripping this roof off and replacing it with 18mm exterior grade OSB sheeting. This actually strengthened the shed even more. A lot of people, they just put roofing felt down and they tack it down with those thumbnails, you know, those galvanized roofing felt nails. The problem I have with those is that they do allow water to come into the timber below, but also once the wind gets under it, it just tears all of the roofing felt. This is a bitumen product, and it's basically adheres the felt to the roof. One big drawback about allotment gardens is that there is a lack of power there, and with that lack of power means that you can't have any lighting, so you're limited the amount of time you can spend at the allotment. You can't run all sorts of things like tools and what have you. Okay, and as many of you have seen, we have been running tools off generators and all sorts over the years. Now, that's not to say solar is the answer for everything. However, what it's going to do is allow us to have a fantastic amount of things that we can do from that solar. And the very first one is to put lighting into this shed. Following the instructions, I simply attached the brackets to the solar panels. Due to the spacing between my roof joists, I had to re-drill some holes to ensure that the bolts would be hitting a joist. Place the panels in your chosen location. You can bolt these down or screw them as I have here. However, to prevent them being stolen, all the screw heads have been rounded over, which means that the panels would be ruined if someone tried to steal them, rendering them useless. Feed the cables from the panels through the shed wall. Ensure to leave enough to tack the wire below the hole in a loop. This will prevent water getting in, as it always goes lower than the hole before dripping off. Do not connect these panels to the wires yet. Okay, so on the charge controller here, we've got a little picture. It's got one for the solar, one for the battery, and then one for the load. Now the load is whatever we're going to take away from that, and we're going to put that into a junction box where we can take off all sorts of stuff. But for these two wires, we need to go into the charge controller. So we've got a positive on the left and we got the negative on the right. The positive is always the red, so we just need to shove that up in the hole up there as far as we can. There we go, and tighten them down. Now we need to make sure that's in there really well. Same thing now with this negative. Right, I'm going to have to cut this one down, it's a little bit long. There we go, much better. Okay, so now we can tidy them up over there with some clips. Job done. All right, so technically now we could link in that solar panel and it will be live. Okay, that is now safe. We can now run two more of these cables which will come down to the battery. Now we're not going to plug in the charge controller just yet, correction, the solar panels just yet, until we get everything we want done here as far as the battery and everything else is concerned. They sure have protected this wire. Now this is quite heavy duty wire, and I know we're only 12 volt, but a fair whack of power can come down through these from them panels, so we need to make sure that that we're secure there. So again, positive on the left, and we need to do the same now with a negative. So that fixing, guys, is just temporary. Now all that is just to attach the wires to the battery for the time being. Now this battery is 130 amp hours, and eventually we will get another couple and we'll wire them in series, and we'll do a video on that when it comes to it. But for now we can connect the solar panel up and it will be charging. It's relatively dark, but I didn't want to wait much longer because I want to get home and have some food. It's coming up to around about 9:15 now. But as you can see, the shed is relatively dark considering the time it is. But I want to show you what the lights are like in here. So that's what the lights light up this shed like. Not bad for a little 12 volt system. And I'm going to run through this 12 volt system. Again, if I turn it out, excuse the mess in my shed, but I just want to show you how effective these little 12 volt lights are. So okay, again, now we're in at the tunnel, and in the tunnel we've got a few lights. There's only 6 in this main part of the tunnel, but it's enough to be able to come up here in the winter after work when it's pitch black at 4:30, and I got all this stuff to go out, but it's enough for me to get up here, do some potting on or whatever I need to do. We also got 2 in here as well, so as we are putting trays in here, it's going to allow us to do that as well, guys. Now you know exactly what it takes to build a shed like this, and I'm sure you'll agree that you couldn't buy anything like this or as sturdy as this from a shop. The great thing about building your own is that you get to control the design and the materials that you use and how big it is. If you've enjoyed this episode, then you can click the subscribe button here. If you want to, you can visit our Amazon shop here, and on this side we have a couple of other videos for you to enjoy. I'm Tony O'Neill, this is UK Here We Grow, and remember folks, you reap what you sow. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.